Hello again. Welcome back to Simply Rick. We're going to carry on with my journey of self-discovery, as I like to call it. Where we left off last time was I had walked away from a marriage of 15 years that was not working, and I find myself to be a single person again. After a short stay with some friends, I managed to find a little apartment and settled in with a few bits of furniture from my office, and my drawing board became my dining room table, and life got interesting. I had also taken a job with an architect, a fellow that I'd known for a number of years, and we became a two-man office. And I was to eventually work for him for 17 plus years. And so I had a steady income, not a great income, but a steady income. And so I began to learn. And one of the first things that happened was a fellow who I was seeing for self-hypnosis for my lack of self-esteem and self-confidence introduced me to a couple of books. And one of them was a little book called The Secret of the Ages. And it was really a wonderful little book that I needed at that time. It was full of lots of motivational sayings and poetry and stuff like that. And it got me into reading. It got me into reading a lot, which I started to do. I started to get curious about how it was that people got through really difficult times and were able to survive and move forward. And so away I went. Come along mid-April, and I'm sitting in my little apartment. I have a little black and white TV, 13-inch, and I'm sitting there with a bottle of white wine, 1 liter, and I'm still smoking, of course. And this program comes on about a school called Outward Bound. It is this place where people have come to experience the outdoors. They're rock climbing, they're rappelling, they're river rafting, they're doing obstacle courses, etc. They go on a backpacking trip to do a 3-day solo. And I look at this and I think, this is really interesting. Now, I haven't been physically active at all. I haven't done any hiking or anything of that sort. But I thought, this is what I really like to do. So the next day I went to work and I mentioned this to my boss. And he said, that's a great idea. I think you should do that. And so I contacted Outward Bound, and it turned out that they had an office in Vancouver. And they also had a program for adults, which was only 8 days, which fitted me perfectly. So somehow I managed to come up with the money for that. I also had to buy hiking boots and clothes to wear on it. And come around the 3rd week of May, I drove 4 hours east of Vancouver to where the school's location was located, up in an area known as Karameas. And there was 5 other people on the course, plus myself, 3 guys and 3 women. And we had a female instructor. And we set about doing all the stuff and going out and rock climbing and rappelling and climbing over walls that are 12 feet high and stuff like that. And then on the 4th day, oops, I think somebody's calling me. Will you excuse me for a minute? I just got to open the door and let her in. There we are, we're back again. Doggy's in the house. She's nice and happy now. And so on the 4th day, we had these backpacks we had loaded up with all kinds of stuff, and we were driven out to a location, and we started hiking up into the mountains. And it was a nice day. It wasn't too hot. It wasn't raining, and we were making elevation gain up this trail and slugging away, boom, 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 boom. And I guess we're about 2/3 of the way up, and my right knee packed it in, and I was in pain. My right knee was giving me a lot of pain, and I wasn't a happy camper. I seem to remember I might have had tears in my eyes. And at that point, I would have paid $1,000 for a helicopter to come and get me out of there, This is not what I expected. But anyways, everybody took a bit of my load and probably liked my pack up by about 10 pounds. It probably weighed in the neighborhood of 50 to 60 pounds as I was carrying. And so we carried on, and I made it to where we were camping that night. And at that point, we were set out to do a 24-hour solo. And we were given our sleeping bag, a sheet of plastic, to create a shelter with, and our water bottle, and I believe a piece of paper and a pencil to write on. And so I had 24 hours to sit out there in the wilderness, the Alpine, beautiful, beautiful, laying there at night looking at all the stars in the sky and thinking about life and where I was at that point. Missed my kids, thought about them a lot, was still in love with her, had to work on that one, and was rather disappointed in my performance the day before. And I sat there and I resolved that I was going to get myself out of there under my own steam, carrying my full load. And so after our 24 hours, the leader came and got us, took us back to camp. We spent the night in camp. And the next morning we packed up and headed out the trail. Left about 8:30 in the morning, I think it was. And we just slugged away all day. And we went for a good 12 hours or more. I mean, it was quite a hike. And I was in front, leading the whole way. I had taken some medicines for pain, and we'd put an elastic bandage around my knee, and I just did it because I had to find out what I was made of. And that night we reached camp it was about 8:30 at night, and we just all collapsed on the ground, totally exhausted. And I felt really, really good. The following day we had about a 3 or 4 hour hike out to where we were going to be picked up. And I just took it easy. I stayed back and made it out there, limped out, and I was fine. But I had proven what I needed to prove. Later that day, everybody had gone out for a run, and I had sat in the mess hall by myself, and we were meant to write down our experience and how we felt about it. And I had written out, that I came to find out who I was and what I was made of. And I had hit the wall, and I had found that, and I felt good about it. And the leader came in, and I showed that to her, and she read it, and she looked at me and says, "Isn't that interesting? You're the only person out of 6 people who really understood what this was all about." So, back to the city. So, at this point, I don't know nothing. My brain is like a hard drive that's been corrupted with a few viruses. It'd be nice. A couple of viruses in there, all right. So I had a lot of reprogramming to do. I had a lot of reprogramming of what goes on up here between the ears. And, Outward Bound was the beginning. It was a start. That and reading. And so I'm back to work for this fellow. The apartment I have is about 5 minutes away from work. So, it's not a big deal to get there and everything like that. And I get to see my kids every second weekend. I take the kids out and we do things. And now that I've been in the outdoors, I'm taking them up in the mountains and we're going for a hike and stuff like that. And the end of the school year comes along. And about a week later, my eldest boy shows up at the door and says, "Dad, I don't want to be with Mom. I want to be with you. Can I come and live with you?" And I said, "Yeah, okay." So he moves into the little tiny apartment, and 2 weeks later, his brother shows up, and it's the same story. So here I am, and I'm in a little one-bedroom apartment that you can hardly swing a cat in, and I got 2 grown boys and myself. And the summer's going on, and I find out that I have been paying her child support every month, but she hasn't been making mortgage payments on the house. So the bank is getting a little perturbed. And we have the house up for sale. And I phoned her and I say, look, this is obviously not working. How about the boys and I move back into the house until we can sell it and they can go back to school. And you move out and we'll do that. And she agreed. So beginning of September, we moved back into the house. And she took my daughter and they went and moved in with a friend of hers. And the months went on into the fall. Jenny, my daughter, would come and spend a week with us every second weekend. And she was obviously not very happy. She wasn't a very happy little girl. She was 10 at the time. And coming up to the end of the year, and I'm thinking, this is not good. The kids have to be together. So I phone my ex and I say, look, either you have the kids or I have the kids. They all have to be together. So come January 1982, she gave me custody of Jenny. So all three of the kids are together, and we were in the house. The house was not selling. The real estate market had gone kaput. You couldn't give it away at that point. And we just settled in, and kids went to school. And being back in the house, I now had a 45-minute, on a good day, commute to where I worked. So that changed things a lot around. I'd also traded down the car I had, which I had car payments on, and ended up with a rusty old Ford pickup truck, which got me from here to there. And and every week I'd come home and payday, and I'd sit there and try to figure out how I was going to pay everything, because I'd got myself in a big, deep hole. My drinking was not as bad. It was much more, let's say, controlled. Drink on Friday night, Saturday night probably, and then I'd go through the week and I'd get to Thursday. And Thursday was sort of like this, the pressure cooker had built up, and there was just like it's all there. And I would buy a bottle of single parent tranquilizer, $4.50 bottle of wine, and I'd sit and I'd drink that. And I'd go to work on Friday with a hangover, but I was better. I'd released the steam, I'd released the pressure. And so we just kept doing this. Something else I did at that time was I joined a group of single parents. It was called Parents Without Partners. And I was probably one of 2 or 3 guys who had custody of the children. All the others were mothers with their kids. Some were getting child support and some were not. And, they were all trying to do the very best that they could do, given the situations that they were in. And I really learned a lot there. I learned a lot about women and what they had to go through. And I like to say that that's where I became a feminist. I became, much more understanding of what women have to deal with. And I made some good friends. I made some really nice friends. And there was those ones that were my friends too. Those situations were very nice. They were very beautiful ladies, but they didn't last because I just wasn't equipped for having a relationship at that time. I didn't know enough about myself, and I knew better than to jump into something else because I had to fix me before I could be anything in another relationship. And, we just did it one day at a time. Got up, went to work, came home. Some nights I'd come home and the boys would be bouncing off the walls, wrestling in the dining room or whatever, and yelling and screaming. And other nights I'd come home and dinner would be on the table and the house would have all been cleaned up and spotless. So I never knew what to expect when I walked in the door. And we just did it. So I think that's as far as we'll go with today, you know. In the next episode, we'll talk about the next couple of years. So we're at 1982 right now, yeah. And we'll talk about what happened in the next couple of years, because there were some changes, some big changes that took place. I'd like to leave you with one thought, though, sort of about where I am today type of thing. So, how are you on gratitude? How many times did you say thank you today? Did you say thank you for this beautiful day that we're given? Did you give thanks for just being? Like waking up in the morning and I say, thank you for the gift of now. You know, this gift of being right now. Because it is a gift. You know, we have so much. I have so much. I have abundance. I had food on my plate last night. I had a good cup of coffee this morning, you know? Yum, 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 yum. Good cup of coffee. You know, I live in this beautiful place. Wherever you are, be grateful. Have an attitude of gratitude for everything that you're given in this world. For the people you share it with, or in my case, these two beautiful doggies that I get to share it with. You know, it's a blessing. So I'll leave you with that one. Have a great day until we talk again. Bye. Lacey.